What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another Because of Sales podcast. For those of you who are OG listeners that listened to episode 3 with Kellen Casebeer, after I recorded with Kellen, I asked him, hey man, look, we're a newer podcast. We want to have cool people on. I don't know everyone. Who do you think would be a super great fit for what we're doing here? Like, who has an amazing story and like a lot of insight to share with the viewers that we've got? He thought for a little bit, and then he said, Patrick William Joyce. I said, okay, I don't know him. He said, yeah, he used to ride on the back of the garbage truck, and then he was a teacher, and now he does all this cool sales stuff. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like an interesting story for sure. So on this episode 13, we've got Patrick William Joyce, and he shares that entire story from humble beginnings up through his time as a teacher, and then getting into sales, dialing in an old school insurance kind of way, and now being a higher up in a pretty good size SDR as a service agency. So if you come from maybe a blue collar background, maybe from the Northeast, you might be able to relate to this story a little bit. And if you're an SDR specifically, there's a lot of game in this episode for you. Oversee some of the business over at Level Up Leads, where their clients truly range all over the spectrum. So good episode for you guys here. Came at it with some genuine curiosity because this was really the first time I got to dive into his story. Now, just before we get into the podcast here, if you're not subscribed to our newsletter, it's free, by the way. Go to that first link in the description. You can pause the podcast right here. I'll wait. Go to the first link. The page will load in 0.2 seconds. Put your email in there so we can send you these episodes, the high points, every single Wednesday, in addition to news, recent events, cool AI stuff, memes, tips, tricks, and honestly, just stuff that's going to give you a better pulse on sales as a profession. That way you can sell more of what you already sell, get perspective as to what's working for other people, or find the next thing to sell. It's free. You can unsubscribe at any time, but every Wednesday morning, I'm convinced there's not a better newsletter for salespeople to read with their Wednesday morning coffee. Go down below, subscribe. Now let's get into the podcast. What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to another podcast Because of Sales. I believe this is going to be episode 12. We've got Patrick in here, who actually was the strongest recommendation from, I think it was guest number 3, Kellen Casebeer. Great episode if you haven't heard that one yet. But Patrick is a sales savant, head of, I'm going to butcher this, the head of account management. Is that right? At Level Up Leads?
It's technical title is Global Head of Accounts and Strategy.
Okay.
Basically, I oversee strategy for all of our accounts.
Cool. And you guys, I've seen some of what you guys have done. I would be really interested to kind of get into that a little bit later, but I want to paint the picture, draw up the story a little bit for people who might not know you, and I'm also interested myself. Kellen said you came from back in the day working, you said you were driving the trash truck, or you were doing what?
I was on the back. I was a laborer.
Okay. To now running like the sales teams. You came up like, I don't know how long after being a teacher you got into sales and just kind of like built upon that. So you went from back of the trash truck to a teacher to finding sales as your lane, which I'd love to dive into. But yeah, let's kind of like take it back to the beginning. How did you even end up on the back of the trash truck to begin with?
Yeah. So my brother has been a truck driver his whole adult life. I came from a very blue collar, like working class family just outside of Boston, in a little city called Revere, Massachusetts. Anybody that knows North Shore, like Revere has a reputation. Yeah, so that was my family growing up. I was kind of the oddball where I was always more academically inclined than, like, my brother fixes trucks, my dad was a mechanic, my other brother's in construction, and I went to a private Catholic high school on a scholarship. So I just, like, the academic side of things was just always really easy for me. So I was kind of an odd duck in my family anyway. But as you can imagine, like, the place where you come from has a big impact on, like, what you end up doing, how you end up conducting yourself. Like, I, went through high school, and went to college for a few years and ended up getting kicked out. Like, I got kicked out of the dorms. Academically, I was doing fine, but I got kicked out of the dorms. I was just acting up. And when I got kicked out of school, my parents were kind of like, all right, you're on your own. Good luck. And my brother got me a job. So that's how I ended up on the garbage truck. It was actually my summer job while I was in college. I was already working with him for like 3 months over the summer. And I was in my early 20s. It was very cool. Like it was a lot of fun, like just running around outside, making money. I was making more money than any of my friends were with their summer jobs. So when I got kicked out of the dorms, I just went and I ended up living with my brother and just working with him. And this is like the way that I always tell this story is like, I got a lot out of working with him, and I took a lot of that blue collar mentality with me into the tech industry. But like the way that kind of manifested was I watched my brother like basically like run this network. So he had a very deep network. He was the shop steward. It was a union shop. So the shop steward is an elected position and basically is the representation of the workers to like the union reps and to the company. So he was kind of like the go-between. So the way that he got there is by doing favors for everybody. Like he had been in the industry for 20 years and like always finding a way to give a handout to somebody. His phone rang all day long with like jobs that would come in for extra money, and he would like pass them off to other people. And I literally like was on his truck, like watching him do this all day. And he had like basically unlimited resources by giving everything that came his way to somebody else. So I watched him do this, and like the network like held him up. Like he was held in high regard in the industry. So I took a lot of that mentality with me to the tech industry. Like when I there's a lot of stuff that happened in between there, but like when I got to tech, I was like, okay, like I'm breaking into this new network. Like I'm going to use the same approach and try to move my way up through the ranks that way, which I was able to do, and like sort of had an unusual trajectory, I think, due to like the way that I approached it based on what I witnessed my brother do on the back of a garbage truck.
Yeah, well, it looks like, I mean, from what I saw, you went from teaching, which I'd love to talk about a little bit, to straight to like team lead, like management style positions. Is that correct, or is that not the whole story?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of artistry there in the way that I've presented myself, but yeah, I mean, just to like sort of fill in some of the gap between the garbage truck and sales, like while I was working with my brother, I went back to school and on my own, like I took out student loans and like went and finished school because I didn't want to work on a garbage truck for the rest of my life. So I was like going to school at night. I finished my math degree and like went and got a job teaching because I was like, at least I'm indoors. And I taught high school math for 4 years and met my wife there. And she's one of the reasons why I left teaching, because I remember like walking into her classroom and I was like, oh, this is not what I'm doing. Like you were doing a different job than what I'm doing. My classes were out of control. You know, I was just like, whatever. I wasn't a very good teacher. Classroom management was a struggle for me. And I did it for 4 years. It was super stressed out, super low paying. And I just wanted to get out of there. But so my wife's from Anchorage, Alaska, and she was like doing her student teaching for her master's program in Boston. Like that's how we ended up meeting. But then, so we were together there for a few years and she wanted to go back to the West Coast. So I ended up in Seattle. And then Seattle is a tech hub. So I was like, oh, I want to get a job in the tech industry. How could I do that? Didn't know exactly how I wanted to do that or what I wanted to do in tech. I just knew that I wanted to work in tech. And I had some math skills. So I ended up getting a job at a group health brokerage as a marketing analyst. Like I just wanted to use my math degree. I thought I was going to become an actuary. Actuaries do like risk analysis for insurance companies, basically like really fancy statistics. So I started down that path. I sat next to a guy that had the job that I wanted, worked as an analyst, basically just like putting together proposals for the sales reps. They're called producers in insurance. And I remember like I was doing all this work for the producers. I was like putting their proposals together, like comparing health plans for, like big, like employee benefit for health insurance for like Taco Time or, like these huge companies. So these producers were making bank, like hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And I'm like watching him do the thing. And I was like, I could definitely do what that guy's doing, but I don't think he could do what I'm doing. So like, what's wrong? He's got a lot more money than I do. Like, what's wrong with this picture? So I started asking him like, how do I get your job? How do we get into sales? And they were like, oh, you got to figure out cold calling. That was like the first answer that everybody gave me. It's like, oh, you got to figure out how to cold call. So like, okay, cool. No problem. I went and I got my insurance license and started selling life insurance. And it was super old school. I'm talking like I had a list of leads that they gave me that were off of Facebook. and they were what you call mortgage protection leads for life insurance. So when you buy a house, you get a sheet of paper in the mail from every insurance company in the area that says, hey, if you were to die, would your spouse be able to pay off your mortgage? If no, like fill out this form and send it back to us, and like we'll sell you some life insurance, more or less. The problem was those leads that I was getting were 4 years old. So it was everybody that had ever bought a house anywhere near Seattle in the last 5 years. Every insurance agent in Seattle got that same list. So I was calling people that didn't have the house anymore, people that didn't live there. You know, it was just like insanely difficult. So that's how I learned how to cold call. I worked for a company called Family First Life and then Colonial Life, and they like really taught me how to cold call. Like I worked in a boiler room. It was like 50 people in a room on hand phones, like pick up the phone, dial the number, right? And then I was doing it out of my bedroom with Google Sheets and Google Voice number. So I was like just copy pasting numbers out of a spreadsheet into the dialer, doing 200 calls a day, trying to set an appointment. So I was setting the appointment, and then I was driving to the person's house, and I was getting them to sign a contract for life insurance, and that's how I was making commission. That was my first like foray into sales.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this is way too hard. Now that I have some cold calling experience, maybe I could go to a sales job at one of these tech companies. So I applied to 2 jobs, and I got one of them right away. Like they interviewed me, they brought me in, they had me do a mock cold call, met the sales director. I actually applied for an account executive position, and he was like, well, you don't have enough experience. I think you'd be good as an SDR. I was like, okay, great. Give me the phone. And I went in there and I slammed the phone every day so hard for like 8 hours. People were walking up to my desk like, dude, you're making us look bad. Why are you working so hard? And I was just like, I'm just trying to make it, dude. I don't know. I was 30 years old. This was my second career. I was like, I can't fail at this. There's like $100 on the other end of the line every time I pick up the phone. Like, I'm going to go find that money. And I was like sticky to the top of the leaderboard right away. And I was like at a VC backed tech company in Seattle. Kombucha keg on tap right across the street from T-Mobile Park. It was like awesome. I was like, dude, working at a startup is awesome. This is what I have to do for forever. Like, this is the coolest thing. This is way cooler than working on a garbage truck, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's like I'll pause there because that's like the whole kind of background to how I ended up in sales.
Yeah. The life insurance thing is kind of a rite of passage. Now, the way that you were doing it versus how it's done today, way different. But I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people listening knew of those companies. I mean, at least I know of Family First Life. They're huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other one might also be huge. I'm just not as familiar.
Well, the other one's for employee benefits. It's ancillary benefits. So I was selling like disability insurance to like mechanic shops and stuff.
Okay.
Like
A little bit more niche, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned you were 30. How long did you do the insurance for?
It was only probably like, I don't know, like 6 or 8 months. It wasn't long. I wasn't making that much money.
Yeah.
It was like working really hard and wasn't making that much money.
Yeah. Were you paying for the leads or did they give you the leads? They were old, but.
Yeah, no, they were just giving them to me.
Okay. It's like, well, shoot, they're already 4 years old. Might as well give them a shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And then you got in there, had the free kombucha right across from T-Mobile Park, I think is what you said. I'm not familiar with Seattle, and it seems like you just ran with it, to be honest. Like, ran with it. How long were you just SDR banging the phone before you moved up into SDR lead and beyond that?
Yeah. Yeah. So the team lead thing just came about naturally. Like, I was just like the top SDR on the team for months, and I was like running meetings, like getting everybody in the room, like helping people figure out, listening to calls, helping them do the thing. So the team lead transition was just very natural. Like that happened, I don't know, like within 6 months.
Cool.
And then I worked there for a year, and then I got a job. I got headhunted by a guy. It was a small recruiting firm in Seattle. Dude called me, said he had a role that he thought I'd be really good for. I was like employee number 12 at this company called Fullcast. So my title was director of business development, but there was only, I was one of 12 people that worked there. So it was basically just like their first sales hire.
Yeah.
Well, there was a sales rep in me. So it was like, I was trying to set up appointments for that guy. But it was a chance for me to go in and build the whole thing from the ground up. And I was like, okay, great. I will take the title bump. Absolutely. And it was a bump in pay. It's like, this is fantastic. I'm moving up.
Yeah.
But like going back to the networking thing that I was talking about in the beginning for my brother, like I started that strategy right from the beginning at ZipWhip. Like when I was the SDR, I was helping everybody out. I was like, hey, I've got this lead. I think you should call him. I have enough meetings already. Like, just handing stuff out to people. I found like 2 AEs that I knew were really solid, that if I passed them the meeting that it was going to convert and I was going to get paid for it. So I just like filled up their calendar. I like sat down with them and really figured out like, okay, like what's the approach here? How am I supposed to do this? Like learning as much as I could from the sales reps and just filling them up. And that comes into play at like the next stage of the story. So I worked at Fullcast for a year. Really cool experience. I got to sit next to these 2 guys that they were a spin-off from Salesforce. They were both executives at salesforce.com. They were like VPs at Salesforce, where they had built the entire like go-to-market internal orchestration for Salesforce and like had built all these automations to help them do that and then spun that off into their own company. And one of the guys was former chief of staff at Microsoft. So it was me sitting in a room with those 2 guys for a year, and they're telling me everything they know about sales ops. So I'm like using that experience to absorb information, like figuring out like, how do I like, just what is the landscape here? What is all these, like all the stuff that these high level people are going to be thinking about so that I could go and sell to them, which is experience that most people in tech like would never get that experience. Like unless you worked at Microsoft or Salesforce and like had been in the room with those people, like there's just no way that you even have access to like those concepts. So that was an incredible experience. It was really hard to sell. There was no marketing support. It was all whatever. It was all me, like, trying to beg, borrow, and steal to get a meeting. And I got a bunch, but it wasn't super successful. And eventually they like downsized. COVID hit and they had to downsize. So they told me I could stay, but they were like, we're going to, cut your base salary in half or whatever. And I was like, I can't do it. And I got another job. Mm-hmm. But the way that I got the next job was from a guy that had watched me on the floor at ZipWhip, ended up going to this other Seattle company called Ikata that got acquired by Microsoft, MasterCard. And they were looking for somebody to do business development for their enterprise team. And it was like their global strategic accounts. So I had 5 account directors that each had a handful of accounts, and they gave me like 10 accounts, and they're like, you got to figure out how to get in there. So like, again, the way that I got that job was by doing my thing at ZipWhip and just being the man. And one of the account executives was watching me do that. So when he went and got the job at Ikata, they were like, we're looking for a business development guy. And he brought me in. I didn't even know the guy. And he was like, I know this guy, Patrick, from one of my last companies. You got to get him. So they brought me in to do that. And it was like, they gave me a list of 10 accounts. It was like Nike, Amazon, eBay, PayPal, JP Morgan Chase. Like, we don't have any contacts there. Go figure this out. So I was looking at that as like, now I'm really like kind of ratcheting up like my skill level. I'm using all the experience that I had, but I don't know how to do this in particular. So let me go hire somebody that's done it before. So I hired myself a sales coach. This guy named Justin Michael, who's like, I don't know, he's controversial these days. He's written a couple of books. He put his name out there, but I hired him to coach me because he struck me as a guy that had actually done the type of work that I was looking to do. And he trained me and really, really upped my game. Like I went from being like a scrappy SDR to being like a really experienced, seasoned, like enterprise business development pro in like 6 months. Mm. So I put like $6 million in their pipeline in a short amount of time, opening these massive deals. Like the CROs on the call, like, how did we get these guys? Oh, Patrick got them. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I was getting accolades based on that. And like, that kind of got me, whatever. I'll pause again there, but that kind of got me into the consulting career.
Yeah. I had 2 questions that I think anyone listening might be interested to hear. And my camera and mic switched like midway through that. So I'm trying to recover here.
Oh, good.
One question is, when you were sitting alongside the guys that came from Salesforce and Microsoft for that year, you mentioned like, dude, I learned things that you weren't going to learn anywhere else when it came to the sales ops. Like, what were some of like the biggest takeaways that you were able to grab onto from those guys being next to them for a year?
Yeah, I'd say that the biggest one was developing an understanding of segmentation. So like taking a market apart, doing like a TAM analysis, being able to set quotas, like how that process actually works at the highest levels. So, you work at a small startup, it's like the world is your oyster. There's no segments. It's like, okay, we might do like 2 or 3 different verticals, but it's like a pretty simple, straightforward exercise. When you've got 1,000 sales reps in your sales force, it's not a simple, straightforward exercise. It's like very, very complicated. And there's all this like kind of back channeling going on with people arguing about what territories they're going to get and like all the different ways that you can slice and dice that. It's like employee size, revenue range, geographies, what's the propensity in the account, doing a top-down analysis versus a bottom-up analysis versus combining those two. Like, your average RevOps hire at like this mid-market startup company is like never even heard of that. Like they might have, a rough idea based on if they've got, 100 sales reps, but doing it at the scale of 1,000 is like a totally different exercise.
Sure.
And I think all that plays into what I do now. So like I get a client now that wants to go and do outbound for the first time. I'm like dicing up their market. Like we do an intake form where they tell us like what verticals they want to go after and who their ICP is. And they're often just wrong. And I'm able to like walk them to like, ask them questions to like really tease out like, okay, like what's the specific pain point for the specific title in this specific vertical that we're going after? And let's build a plan to be able to do that. And like I would have never been able to do that had I not had that experience.
I'm only going to ask this right now because you kind of just brought it up, like the present day, what you guys do. But what kind of companies are you guys serving in particular at Level Up Leads?
There's a wide range. A wide range, all the way from air filter manufacturing, all the way up to and including like, enterprise grade software for XYZ. Like, I mean, there's so many different things in between. There's a bunch of tech startups, like, small size, like, couple employees like they built some cool thing with AI, all the way to like payment processing, like there's services, like there's a huge range.
Okay. I didn't know if you guys were focusing on one thing in particular or one vertical, so to speak, but mostly anyone who just does like outbound sales efforts, it seems like, right?
Yeah. I'd say like the most comfortable zone that we're in is like just B2B tech. Like that's probably like most of the customer base, but there's, some odd ones around the outside.
Quick break for the sponsor of this week's podcast and newsletter, the Serial Sales Community. The Serial Sales Community is a business that I've personally been running since August of 2022 that specializes in helping people, whether you have sales experience or not, break into the world of 1099 remote appointment setting or closing. There are so many large businesses blowing up on the internet, and the frequency of these just seems to be accelerating right now. Well, just as an in-person business, online businesses need salespeople too. What I'm referring to specifically is coaching, consulting, agency services, software, boot camps, masterminds, communities, retreats, cohorts, all of the above, all of these big online businesses. These are businesses that charge just a little bit too much to send someone to a checkout page and a buy now button. Usually businesses that have a sales process that prompt a one-on-one conversation. That's where you come in. Now, last month alone, we shared 262 open 1099 remote sales roles in the community. And I'm convinced, and I hope you guys are convinced, that this is the epicenter of where these roles exist. It's not LinkedIn. It's not Indeed. It's not Glassdoor. It's in the Serial Sales Community. If you go down to the second link in the description, you will find a link to book a call with the team. Mention Because of Sales will give you 5% off any membership you choose. Back to the pod. You guys have a pretty big team over there, right? I saw a number from, I think, John's application, which you guys will see the episode with John after this, a couple weeks after. But how big is the team with you guys?
With everybody, I don't even know. I think it's got to be like 60 or 70 people. There's 40 SDRs on staff, 6 CSMs, myself, John and Chris. We've got 4 account managers and then a data research team also.
Yeah, that's a serious operation. I forgot what the second question. I wanted to ask about the guy from Microsoft, guy from Salesforce. Here's another question. If it comes back to me, I'll ask it. But that's when you mentioned you really got into like the consulting stuff after is it Akata? Is that how you pronounce it?
Mm-hmm.
So after that, And I'm just kind of like looking through like all the different stuff you had done, as at least just listed on the LinkedIn. When obviously, dude, you're not like, you're in a different kind of business now than like some big funded tech startup.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like that's when you kind of branch more towards the like entrepreneurial performance base. Like I kind of have a resume now, but was it kind of like a gradual transition, or was it like really fast? Like I'm the guy who did this and now I'm going to go and like, I don't know, like there's a different approach, right? Like after you hit that big thing on your resume. So I'm curious like how you kind of evolved into like the consulting versus just like being an employee for somebody.
Yeah, it happened really fast. It happened really fast. So like I keep talking about the networking concept, but that was like a really big part of it. So like I got the job at Ikata doing the enterprise thing. I like had success with them. And then I hired the sales coach to help me out. And then that was really the jump off point. So once I hired the sales coach, I started working with him and doing as much as I could for him. Like he started asking me to help him with some of the work that he had. And I was like doing the stuff. And he was like, dude, you should quit your job and like just come and work with me. He's like, I'll write you a check tomorrow. He's like, you're good at this. Like I can't find people that have the same experience, skill level, like work ethic, etc. Like you should just come and do this with me. And I was like, that sounds crazy. I'm in.
Yeah, you just reminded me, it was the sales coach. You mentioned you started working with him, and within 6 months, you were like night and day different. Like, what did you guys really focus on that allowed you to level up like that so fast?
Yeah. So I had spent the previous 3 years trying to figure out how to do sales development. So like just one step back, when I got the job at ZipWhip as an SDR, I figured out right away that like it was one of the most important jobs in the company and absolutely nobody wanted to do it. And I was like, if I could just specialize in opening business rather than trying to be the closer, I bet you I'll never be out of work. And that turned out to be a pretty good. So I spent a long time trying to figure out like, or that those 3 years, like, how do I become an expert at opening new business? Like, I want to be that guy. I want that to be the feather in my cap, is that this guy knows how to go and open deals, like when there's nothing there. So I had read everything that was on LinkedIn. I followed all the people you follow. Josh Braun. At the time, it was Beck Holland and personalization at scale. That was like the big thing that was out there, where you got to like personalize the first line of the email to grab their attention and all the psychology behind it. So I was like indoctrinating myself into whatever I could find on LinkedIn. And then when I hired Justin, he was like, hey man, you don't have to do any of that stuff. It's way too heavy of a lift. Let me show you like how this works at the highest level. And the stuff that he showed me like blew my mind. It was like one line emails with typos in them. And you just like make it look like a text message. Like you want to come across as like an authority, that like your time is valuable, and not like slathering kind of admiration for the prospect. That's going to turn them off right away.
Right.
Like you're reaching out to like the president of the retail bank at Capital One, like you send them a one-line email and like, this is what it should look like. And I even remember the email that was booking the meetings. It was like, I was going and building a contact list of like 30 accounts, 30 contacts at one account. And I was doing research on each of them, trying to see where they had work history and if any of their work history lined up with my current client list. So like I would look at, I don't know, Jack Smith or whatever, and see that he worked at, I'm going to make up company names, but Microsoft, and I had Microsoft as a client. So I would say to him, hey, Jack, I noticed that you worked at Microsoft. They're actually a client of ours right now. We helped them with fraud detection via PII identification. Was hoping we could go over some similar ideas with you. Like hit send, books the meeting. And that like exploded my brain. I was like, oh my God, I don't need to spend half an hour like looking into this guy's personal interests.
Yeah.
I just have to like lower his guard enough and like tell him what I do. And like, that's what's going to get me the meeting. So, okay, how fast can I repeat that process? So it just like, it just, I don't know, it sort of changed the way that I was looking at the whole operation.
Sure. No, that totally makes sense. And then you went to go work with this guy and learned a ton. When did you, I know with Level Up Leads, like you haven't been there all that long yet, but when did you, or what made you decide to go from like one man show doing your own thing back into like big team environment and that kind of thing?
Yeah. So while I was doing the independent route, I had some really cool experiences where I was like freelance contracting with a bunch of different outbound agencies. So like what I was doing is writing all the content, like doing all the copywriting for a bunch of different agencies at once. So I had no boss. I was like a 1099 contractor. I was like this outside source that they were kind of just white labeling my services as their own. So they would go and bring in the client and they would send me the info and then I would spit like the content back to them. And I was doing that for 5 different agencies at once. One of them was Predictable Revenue, which Aaron Ross like is the author of Predictable Revenue. It's like the Bible of Silicon Valley. It's a big deal. I got to work with Aaron on a bunch of consulting projects because I was doing content for them. And they were like, hey, like, could you explain like what was your thought process and how you did this? And then as soon as I started talking, they were like, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. They were like, you should come and work with us more. So I ended up doing a bunch of consulting projects with Aaron, like me and Aaron Ross on a Zoom call. Oh, 4 years ago, I was an entry level. 4 years ago, I was selling insurance in my bedroom on an Excel sheet. And now I'm on a Zoom call with Aaron Ross and he's passing me the mic on like an executive leadership. There's like an executive leadership team of like a $40 billion company. And they're like, how should we do business development? So like that also like kind of broke my brain. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. That's the part I was talking to you earlier. I think we weren't on the air yet, but it's like an unusual trajectory for an SDR.
Yeah, super unusual. So, I mean,
I guess I didn't really answer your question though. Like you said, like, why did I end up joining a team?
Yeah, like what? I mean, you kind of did. Yeah,
like,
no,
I mean, where I was going with that was basically like after having that experience inside the agencies, like it became really obvious to me that I had a really like deep, like niche set of experiences and expertise that could almost only be fully utilized in a scaled up agency.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I couldn't go back and work at a product company again. I tried to, and it was miserable.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm just trying to make sense, like talking about the trajectory. I'm trying to make sense of it. We talked about networking and like, yeah, networking helped, but like to go exactly like you said, basically 4 years to like getting like just going through the ringer with insurance sales to kind of like progressing through the dream progression for most like SDRs, let's call it, through like the tech and SaaS space. It's just pretty crazy. What else, like besides networking and you probably willing to work harder than most other people, like what else would you attribute to that insane trajectory?
Yeah, I mean, it was me being opportunistic, but it was like also I think when I say networking, people get the wrong idea. Like they think you're talking about like, I don't know, like adding people on LinkedIn and handing a business card out at conferences and stuff. That had nothing to do with what I was doing. What I was doing was doing favors for as many people as I could, just like I watched my brother do on the garbage truck. So like me being that guy at the first SDR job got me to the enterprise business development team. Like somebody that got hired there was like, if you need an SDR, like this is the best guy in Seattle, definitely. So like they pulled me into that job. And then once I got the consulting stuff going where I hired the sales coach, I was like doing work for him for nothing. I was like helping him with his stuff, like just trying to just feed into that as much as I possibly could because I saw him as a really important node in the network. And I was like, how do I get the only way I'm going to get something out of that is not by asking him to do me a favor, it's by doing favors for him. So like, how much can I do for this guy? And then that got me in front of Aaron Ross. You see what I'm saying? Like that whole me ping ponging through that was me like utilizing that tactic.
No, that makes sense. I think that's a good distinction to make too. It's not the like in-person seminar business card networking, which I'm sure you're on to like in-person events, but like it's a little bit more strategic. And it's not like you're not doing like you're doing it because you know that long term is probably going to put you in a better spot, but you're not doing this stuff like today to get this outcome tomorrow, right? It's like, hey, I just know if I do this and like if I plant enough seeds out here in the world doing good things for people, like it kind of comes back. How do you do that today? Like with where you're currently at, working with the team you're at, like how are you implementing that in whether it's like your work or your professional life to, I don't know what your plans are necessarily with where you're at, but like, are you doing that in other avenues right now? The same thing?
Yeah. I mean, in my professional life, the way that it manifests these days is I've gotten a lot of people jobs. Like it almost seems like recruiting would be like a good next phase for me or a future phase for me because like as I've developed my reputation and like just my spot in the network, like I'm known for high quality work. Like I'm not the most famous guy on LinkedIn. Like my content doesn't do well at all, but the people that know me, they know that it's like, this guy's the man. I have a pretty deep network of SDRs. I hired a bunch of people at Level Up. Like we went from 25 reps to 40, and I picked most of those people. Like I, do what I can to help people out with work, refer people to jobs, use the people I see people that are looking for jobs, and I like, happy to provide references or whatever. Even when I've had to let people go, like I'm always like, hey man, whatever your next thing is, let me know what you need. Like I'm happy to be a reference or whatever. So I think, I don't know, that in my most recent life, it's been helping people out. And it all goes back to helping people make money. Like if you can help people make money, they're going to remember you.
Yeah, definitely. What are you really looking for in SDRs, whether they're for like your company, the businesses you guys are working on behalf of, or just referrals? Like, how do you know when someone is like someone to take serious?
Yeah. They've got to be somewhat fearless. Like if there's any phone reluctance at all, any kind of dial reluctance, it's just not going to be the best fit for you. Like you've got to be kind of gritty. It's like I actually look for people being able to work through adversity, like that have overcome difficult hurdles in their life. Like me working on a garbage truck and finishing a math degree at night school was not easy. Picking up the phone and making cold calls was very easy in comparison. It was like, oh, this is just, I don't know, man. I'm sitting in an air conditioned room, drinking a Coca-Cola. Like it's all good. So I look for stuff like that. I think like that part of the person's personality is the most important part. The sales training, the tactics, the technique, the phone presence, all that stuff can be taught. You can't teach somebody how to have grit.
Do you think that's like in any SDR role out there right now, that is like the same theme across the board, that grit is like undeniably the biggest character trait? Or do you think that it kind of varies based on companies and industries?
I don't think it does. I think it is like the job is 98% rejection. Like on a good day, you talk to 100 people, you get one meeting, you're having a good day.
Are you guys with the current business? Are you guys are managing these SDRs? I'm not all too familiar, and this would be cool to elaborate on just for anyone who again is like interested in learning about how you guys operate. But you guys go into these businesses, and is it like we build these systems and house these SDRs under our business and it's like a function of your business, or do you go and like build this into businesses and then just kind of like oversee it?
No, it's SDR as a service. They pay us and we do it for them. So all of our systems are in-house, right? Like we've got the dialer, we've got the data, we've got the talent, like the strategy guy, right? Like I'm meeting with the client, trying to understand who their ICP is, how to do the messaging. We have a copywriter on staff, but I work with him also. We have CSMs, they manage the day-to-day with the client, but like I'm there in the beginning looking what all the strategy is. So yeah, I don't want to say black box because we're pretty transparent about it, but it's pretty much like turnkey.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I ran a similar model, and the guy I had on just before you, his name's also Dylan, runs a similar model. Are you guys, the SDRs that you're, I guess we're seeing, are they 1099? Okay, cool. How are you guys vetting? I mean, for you guys, because you're doing outbound, it's a different game. The other, well, actually, the one that I ran and this previous guy were more on the like inbound side of things. But when you're looking at a new client, you definitely, when you're outsourcing such a large and important part of the business, it's important to make sure that you're confident in your ability to get results for them, and that the market is large enough, and they're even looking at the right market, right? When you're evaluating people to take on, what are some like dead set criteria that you always like they must have, and some things that if you see this, like maybe they're not really the fit for you guys, or there's some hesitations there?
I'll tell you where the hesitations come in is when they don't know who their ICP is, or they think they do and they have a very vague idea about that. They don't have any customers yet. That's an indication that this is going to be tough. Like, don't have a good idea of the messaging. I mean, we still work with those companies. Like, we're not turning people away, but we're having a different conversation with them and setting it up, putting a different level of effort into the setup. Then if it's like somebody comes in, they've got a sales team that's humming along already. They know exactly what accounts they want to go after. They just need us to go source the contact data and like actually just make the calls for them. That's like a totally different exercise than somebody that's kind of loosey goosey on it, that comes in and says, well, I don't know. I mean, you guys are the experts. That's when I hear that phrase on a call, I'm always like, man, here we go.
Yeah. What do you think allows you guys to perform? Because when you're hiring, do you call it an agency or do you call it?
Yeah, it's an agency.
Okay. So like as a business owner, when you're hiring an agency, you're usually, well, there's different reasons why you hire an agency, right? And a lot of these companies, they get to a certain size where they're like, dude, we really would like to have sales in-house. So what I'm curious for you guys with the positioning, like how do you guys position yourselves to like, one, get into these companies and take over a large part of it, but also like maintain these accounts and grow within the accounts versus getting to the point where a lot of agencies get, which is like, yeah, this is really good, and I think we're going to do it because it'd be more profitable.
Yeah, it's exactly about them not wanting to stand up the sales development function in particular. Like their sales team is still in-house. Like their closers, it's a lot easier to maintain a set of closers than it is to stand up an outbound operation from a cold start. So you've got to hire. You have to, if you don't know how to do it yourself, you have to hire a manager. Then you have to buy the data. Then you have to outfit them with tech. It starts to get very, very expensive. Like we have our lowest package is $5K a month for like, we call it like a fractional cold caller. For $5K a month, 60 grand a year, you're not going to be able to hire a secretary for 60 grand a year, right? Like there's just no way that you're going to beat that price. And we can stand up you sign the contract, pay the invoice. A week later, we've got a guy that's been making cold calls for the last 10 years, setting appointments for you. Like that doesn't happen if you're trying to do it in-house.
Yeah. I'm curious too with what you guys are doing, especially because the reps are 1099, because that's what I had done previously and some others. But do you primarily have like one sales rep put all their focus and attention into one account? Do you ever like move people across accounts? Do you have people on multiple accounts? Because managing 1099 reps when, well, I have no idea how you structure pay or anything, but 1099 reps, they're difficult to manage, especially if they're not making 1099 rep money all the time. So like, how has that been for you guys?
Yeah. It's what's the right word? It's a challenging environment, I think, to manage 40 people like that. So like we recently just hired an SDR manager and then another one. So when I first started at Level Up, it was 25 reps and I was managing that team plus the 4 CSMs. And then that got to be like, as the account started to grow and we started to get more and then, hire more people to fill the work, it got unmanageable for me. So we hired an SDR manager. And then once the team grew even more, we hired a second manager. So like that whole structure, I kind of helped put in place. And like we pay per project. So like some of the people are on multiple projects. Some of them just do one. Like some people do this as like their part-time gig where, they might have a different job or they might just be doing one project for us and they don't want to take anything else on. They can get through the work in, 3 or 4 hours or whatever and just go about their day. Some people use it as like their full-time gig and they take on up to 3 projects at a time for us, like depending on the level of commitment that each one takes. Like I said, there's, we've got 2 different levels of service. So if it's one of the fractional ones, they can do multiple. If it's one of the full-time ones, they can do less, but yeah.
That makes sense.
And there's a lot of thought that goes behind who to put on what account also. Like I meet the client and I know the reps pretty well. So then I'm like deciding like, okay, who's going to be good on this one? And I'm moving the pieces around on the chessboard all the time. And so I get it wrong and I have to switch it out. Sometimes it wasn't the best fit and it's really hard to tell. But yeah, there's it's like a whole part of my job is trying to figure that out.
It's a dance for sure, because you have to manage expectations on both sides. And as soon as the variables in the equation are people versus like systems, it's not the easiest thing ever. That's my personal experience with it. I wanted to ask you, so you guys are doing outbound on behalf of a lot of different companies, different niches. verticals, products, everything. What are you guys seeing out there right now? Like if we have an SDR team lead listening in, hoping to hear some under the radar sales SDR alpha right now, like is there anything that you guys have implemented either recently, anything you're seeing out there that has really helped you guys get results that are, not necessarily normal for the rest of the market?
Yeah. The number one thing I would say is that the phone is by far the best channel that we have, like by a lot. Like get comfortable with being on the phone. And when you're on the phone, like, okay, I'll give you a story for a custom software shop that we work for. Custom software is notoriously difficult to sell via outbound. Like you're calling somebody and you're saying, hey, like if you have any projects that we could help you work on, like I've got coders for you. And you're calling IT people, you're calling engineering people, like it's a tough gig. But what made us successful in that venture was like talking to the shop and being like, okay, let's really niche down into one particular vertical that you've served before. And what I want you to do is give me specific things that you have done for those other companies in that vertical. So like healthcare technology, for example, healthcare tech companies, you guys have worked with a bunch of those. What kind of projects have you done? I don't know anything about coding and healthcare tech. I'm not a programmer. I don't know anything about it, but you do. You have to tell me as much as you can. Download as much information as possible. And then we work that into the script. So like when my SDR, who's also not a programmer, calls and speaks to like these specific types of projects and like migrations and this and that, and like just using like very kind of insider language around that type of thing, that tells the person on the other end of the line, oh, these guys know what they're talking about. I'm not talking to a sales rep. I'm talking to somebody that like knows my industry very well. Even if they kind of do, they kind of mostly don't, but like they at least sound like they do. That was kind of the unlock. So like niching down into a particular vertical and then making your talking points reflect work that has actually been done. So this is where you take like the sales funnel and it comes full cycle with like the contracts that you have in progress. So like you're talking to the contracts that you have in progress in order to figure out what you're supposed to say at the top of the sales funnel.
Makes sense. Yeah, no, that definitely makes a lot of sense.
So I guess the tip for like the SDR that's out there that's trying to figure out like how do you become the rock star, it's like go talk to the customers, go talk to current customers, go talk to your CSM team that just did a renewal and go figure out why did those customers renew? Why didn't they cancel? What made it so that they couldn't turn us off? And like listen to those recordings, listen to those people talk, listen to the customers talk, and use their language in your cold calls.
Yeah, it's funny because the podcast right before I asked a similar question, again, similar businesses, but different. And the first thing you said was the phone is like the best channel. And he said the same thing. He's like, just learning how to dial and speak well on the phones. Like there's so much room for improvement there for most people to where you can just do that and then take it a level deeper, go learn from past existing current clients that renew, learn about their customers, like speak the language. Like, yeah, it just seems like the lowest hanging fruit. You guys are also doing email, LinkedIn, other channels, correct?
Mm-hmm.
When you bring on clients, you have different tiers. Is that super like industry or market dependent on like the specific strategies that you'll implement?
Yeah. Like for LinkedIn, for example, like sales and marketing, if that's your audience, LinkedIn is great. LinkedIn has been a great channel for us. If you're selling to DevOps engineers, it is not. Like those people go to LinkedIn when they're looking for a job.
Yeah.
In their profile or whatever,
What would be the approach to find like DevOps engineers?
Call them.
Okay.
Call them and know what you're talking about,
Yeah, makes sense. This is a super interesting world to me because I've like not really done too much like outbound B2B stuff, but there's a ton of ways to get data. There's data providers everywhere, pull from every which way source. A lot of them pull from like LinkedIn. If you're selling into an industry that maybe it's a little old school, maybe they don't care at all about LinkedIn or like any of the social stuff, so their information is harder to grab. Like, what are some alternative ways that you do try to get in front of these companies or try to get in touch with the decision makers when it comes to like a data scraping perspective, I guess?
We spend a lot of money on data. Like we have Sales Intel, Zoom Info, like name your data provider. We've been through them. We use Clay. Like for one campaign, I was selling for an accounting firm, like outsourced accounting services. So we looked on Clay for anybody that had open job posting for a controller, finance controller. So like anybody that had that job posting, that's usually in a particular industry, that's usually an indicator that like you need somebody to look at your books. It's the only reason you'd have that job open. So then we, took that list out of Clay, like, went and got the contact data and did that. So like we've gotten creative with it. I mean, store leads is another one. People that are going after e-commerce, store leads has been very good. Another tool that we really, really, really love is called Ocean. It allows you to build lookalike company lists. So like you put 5 companies in there of like here's your top 5 clients. Give me a bunch of companies that look like those, and it will just spit out a list of lookalike companies based on, there's a bunch of different data points that they look at. Another one that's very similar to that is called DiscoLike. DiscoLike.com will also allow you to do the lookalike search in natural language. So you can, like whatever. There's like a ChatGPT prompt that's built into their little widget where like you put a bunch of websites in there and it scrapes all the data and then it like whatever. There's like a whole thing.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, because if you're looking at that as the business to bring it in-house, it honestly is difficult to compete, especially just on a price. Like price is a huge deciding factor on all this, I'm sure, but then it's like effort and attention and splitting that into maybe like some of these businesses you work with, maybe they're really good at like fulfilling the service and they don't really give a shit about sales, even though they know it's important, so they're just like, yeah, it makes sense to hire up or higher level up leads for this right now. I want to talk a little bit more holistically. So because of sales, we're focused on helping people sell more, gain leverage in what they're doing, but also for people who are like just kind of a little bit newer, showing them like, dude, on the other side of learning this skill of sales and getting in different positions of leverage, like you can really create something that you enjoy, a life, a reality that is good for you, right? What would you say, like if I say just like because of sales, my life is like, can you elaborate a little bit on just like what getting into sales has done for you as a person, as a professional, and kind of what you attributed that to?
It's caused me to look at how I interact with people in a very different way, which I think sort of lends itself to a lot of other areas of life. Like, for example, you're at a store or you're waiting in line for something and you're getting frustrated with the person behind the counter. Like after having done sales, like I just look at that whole interaction from the other person's perspective. And that's even something I connected the dots between that and my teaching experience. So like when I was a teacher, if I couldn't see the world through those kids' eyes, if I couldn't like flip my perspective around, I was never going to be able to get through to them. And the exact same thing is true in sales. If I can't flip the camera around from my perspective, which is I want you to buy something so that I make money, flip it to, well, why would they ever buy something? Like, what does the world look like through their eyes? That's how you can actually start making a connection. And I think that skill set, it's just widely applicable in life.
If you were to do it again, like if you had to start over and get into sales and find success in a different way, knowing what you know now, like would you do anything different?
I probably wouldn't spend so much time messing around as a teacher.
That makes sense.
Invest in Bitcoin more? No, I don't know.
Yeah, no, for sure. If you couldn't go into any like industry that you've been in before, based on what you know is out there, are there any other industries that from a sales perspective are interesting to you that seem lucrative or you would be down to consider, assuming you couldn't do like tech or agency services, that kind of thing?
You mean like to do sales in a different industry?
Yeah, like if in an alternate reality, you have to just go sell somewhere else, like where would you go?
I don't know. That's a good question. Like, I almost want to, there's 2 things that come to mind. I think the more interesting one is probably somewhere in the medical field, like medical device sales or something like that. Like, cause that's like a whole other track that I know nothing about, but it seems like that industry isn't slowing down anytime soon. Right? Like there's just always new technology that's coming out and, figuring out how that, or maybe finance, I think would probably be another one.
Yeah, not a bad spot. I agree on the medical thing, but I also know some people who are a little bit tapped into dental sales.
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of like an extension of medical, I guess, but specifically dental. And it's turned out to be pretty lucrative for them. So anyone listening, if you don't know what to sell, maybe go sell to dentists or get into finance. Let's see. I guess for like the SDR that's listening to this, because a lot like the average listener of this podcast and the reader of the newsletter, they are honestly, they've been in sales for a little bit. They're between like 100 to 150K per year, sales reps, closers, account executives, and then business owners. But speaking directly to the SDRs, because that's probably a better angle for this one, aside from just getting better on the phone, like what is your top piece of advice that they should immediately go and tomorrow when they clock in at work, like try to implement to see improvement in what they do?
Yeah, all the what I was calling networking activity. How do you build a reputation for yourself? Because in all reality, the job that you have right now is probably not the last job you're ever going to have. It's not the type of industry that we work in. Like it's not going to be your forever home. So like obviously you want to do a good job. You want to be known for somebody that works hard and that does a good job no matter what. But you also have to consider what life is going to be like after that. And how can you help out future Pat, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that because in the industry that I'm in and coming from, it's the same thing, man. The people that I know that progress the furthest and like have sustained success, because we're also like 1099, well, they're usually pretty good at sales, but they always have like a strong network, always. Because if you're just good at sales, but you don't know anyone, nobody knows about you, like every time something falls through the cracks or every time you want to go find the next best thing, you're starting from zero, which is tough.
Yeah. And I find a lot of people like completely whiff on that. Like you're in a sales role and it's just very natural to like do like resource guarding where you're like trying to just make sure that you have enough for you. And if you actually do the opposite,
Yeah.
it kind of ends up working out better.
Yeah. And it's hard to do in the beginning because, like, dude, a lot of people, they go from some job in another industry, probably not that high paying, to seeing six figures right in front of them. And they're like, I need to fight tooth and nail to get this. Like, this is here. This is a reality that I can unlock if I just do the work. And I could see why a lot of people do get into that, again, that like guarding mentality around this. But long term, like I can attest to it as well. Like helping people where you can will help you a lot. So trying to think of anything else that would be good to dive into on this one. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you think would be cool for the people to hear or learn from?
I don't know. I don't know. Nothing's coming to mind for like sales topics anyway. I could talk all day though.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, our main thing is just like have someone in who they may not know, hear a new story, hear a new perspective, hear how these people in all different industries are like finding success. And so we definitely have a broad audience of people in all different industries, but the intention is like have people in who might be in a different industry who can listen to what you say, apply it to what they do, and like have a breakthrough or just like have perspective what it is that you do or what else is out there. So where do you want to direct people? We'll put all your links and stuff below, but where's the best place for people to connect with you and then to potentially like work with you in any capacity?
Yeah, LinkedIn is a good spot to get at me for that kind of stuff. For the past few months, I've had very few real people reach out to me on LinkedIn. And I know that there's real people behind
Yeah.
those like automated pitches and whatnot, but like every message I get, every connection request I get is like somebody trying to sell me like soda for the office or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, come find me on LinkedIn, my Substack. I do a lot of writing there. Like I was saying off the air, I use it as an exercise to help me get some of my thoughts down. So it's less of a traditional newsletter and more of like, just me kind of sharing all my sales philosophy and whatnot.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll link all that below. If you message him on LinkedIn, do the customized one-liner at minimum. I know exactly what you're talking about. I don't even go on LinkedIn that much, but it's awful because every time I do, it's what you just described.
Yeah, just mention the podcast. If you're an
Yeah.
actual person, I'd be happy to talk to you.
There we go. Cool. Do you guys hire often? Do you take in applicants a lot, like SDR applicants? Is that something we would want to link?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're pretty much always looking for talent. We're not sometimes it takes a minute for, us to find the window to hire, but we're like always looking to have like a bench of talent.
Sure. Cool. All right. Well, dude, this has been good. It's been good to like dive into your story, get to know you a little bit. You guys listening, go follow them, go connect with them, go work with them however you can. And Patrick, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, right on. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
All right, you guys, that was the pod. You and I both got to learn a little bit more about the come up, the rather unusual path that he took. Honestly, this story was kind of refreshing to know that you can accelerate your career like that outside of the traditional sales path. Pretty cool stuff. Links are going to be down below. So if you want to connect with him, I believe his biggest platform is LinkedIn. Just make sure you approach him like a real person. Mention the podcast in the message if you do reach out. If you're an SDR looking for your next role, I don't know why you would not get in touch with him and the team at Level Up Leads. You can find that through his LinkedIn. But that's all I got for you guys in this one. Next week, we've got one of my personal friends from maybe the hottest payment processing / company out now for online business owners. You're in for a treat. Don't miss the next one. And before we wrap this one up, you guys, please go down to that first link in the description. Subscribe to the newsletter. We want to send you cool stuff, man. We want to help you sell more and make it easier. Are you against that? Would that be the worst thing ever? If not, go down, put your email in there. It's free. You can unsubscribe at any time. You probably won't want to, but I share that to let you know it's truly risk-free. Thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you in the next one.